Hey, so I've observed that for many of us, myself included, the stimulus that is drawing us into this dark night of the soul experience that is, of course, as we know, simply a process of helping us to refine our own intuitive capabilities, is stemming from the karmic experience of this narcissist empath dynamic that at this moment in time, and for the past few years, of course, many have been experiencing. So I want to talk a little bit about this narcissist empath dynamic and how to maybe learn from it, how not to get caught in the trap of blaming the other, or even blaming yourself for that matter. Because this dynamic, this karmic dynamic, is being brought into our life for the benefit of both of the individuals involved in this dynamic, right? So let's say, in my experience, me and, my ex or whatever, we both had you could say an entity or like a parasite, right, within us, both of us. And ultimately it was that entity that was being that was magnetizing that dynamic, karmically speaking, right? So the purpose of that entity, of any parasite for that matter, right, is to survive. And so what that entity wants is to create tension, to create blame, to create confusion, and for both individuals to be blaming one another, to not be able to see the truth of the matter, which is, in my experience, from what I've learned from this dynamic and experiencing in my own life a few years ago, and the healing that has come from that experience over the last few years, has taught me to recognize when I am blaming the other for my own emotional state. How to take responsibility back for your emotional state. Yeah. So first, there is that reminder of, okay, I'm creating this within myself, first of all, right? That initial reminder of looking inwards is what initially will disempower this entity, to cut the cord from it, though it's still there. So there's a process, it's a process, right, of detaching from this entity, this parasite. And also recognizing that it's not our responsibility to help the other to detach from the entity within themselves. It's up to each individual to do it for themselves, right? So that's why it's important, at least at first, to create space once we recognize that this dynamic is being drawn into our experience, that we're drawing this into our experience, we're creating this karmically for ourselves, to learn from this, in order to be able to release this entity from within ourselves, to be able to more clearly listen to our intuition, because this entity is actually manipulating us internally through fear. The way that this entity does this often is that there is a natural tendency for us to want to cling to the idea that we're the victim. Like, that in this narcissist empath dynamic, we're the empath and the other is the narcissist. Yes? Right? So it's important to recognize that we're both of these. We both have both of these internally. We're both drawing this similar experience and mirroring one another. So while, in that past it might seem like you're the victim, the other is also feeling the same way. And they're feeling this because this entity is taking advantage of a blind spot within us. It's sort of like a hole in our aura that this entity is parasitically taking energy from us. This is happening on the etheric level, of course. It might even be happening on the physical level in terms of a parasite. So it's important to pay attention to the detoxification process of even the physical body structure. But I'm talking more about the etheric level right now. So understand that for us to be able to release the inner narcissist that is within us, this experience is being drawn magnetically into our life. We're creating this on purpose. To grow from this. In order to be able to learn how to actually love ourselves. You see, this entity wouldn't be able to exist within our experience if we actually fully loved ourselves. And what we don't realize is that unconsciously, both of the individuals in this empath narcissist dynamic, as it is so talked about, are using one another. Yeah? Both of us in this past relationship, we're using one another to get something out of one another that we didn't feel like we had in ourselves. So to be able to find that love within yourself, and even eventually, maybe, end up with a partner that there's a real, true, loving relationship with, where there's no codependency. There's no neediness. There's no stress that is built up from this tension. We have to learn how to feel whole within ourselves first. Now, it's easy to talk about on an intellectual level, but when you really experience this dynamic in your life, and it sort of shocks you into the dark night of the soul, remember to look internally for that inner narcissist within yourself. And don't claim to be the empath. Because ultimately, in that relationship, we are both. And the other is simply mirroring, showing us what exists within ourselves by mirroring it in their actions. So, once again, pull back from blaming the other. Pull back from even blaming yourself. Because it's not your fault or the other's fault that this entity is existing, that this parasite is there. It just is. So just recognize that this parasite is. And then take care to go about the detoxification process, to deal with it, to become whole within yourself, to love yourself completely, and to take care of your own needs rather than using someone else to fulfill them. Okay? I hope this makes sense. Hey. Hope it makes sense to you guys. Okay? This is my buddy. A couple of my buddies. My walking buddies. They get along. Okay. I share that with you after a few years of really deeply integrating this experience and learning from it, of why that relationship in the past failed so miserably, and why it really had nothing to do with the other, nothing to do with my ex-girlfriend, nothing to do with anyone but my own self and my own karma. This was a lesson that I needed to learn in order to be whole within myself. So, feel that, learn from that. Maybe you can get through this a little quicker than I did. Love you. Namaste.